Adrian Wells was the embodiment of hard work and passion. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, he developed a love for cooking in his grandmother's tiny, warm kitchen. His dream was simple yet ambitious: to share the joy of food with the world. After years of relentless effort, Adrian achieved that dream with Wellswood Pies, a cozy yet upscale pizzeria known for its innovative gourmet flavors and welcoming atmosphere. Adrian's dedication turned it into a local sensation, earning glowing reviews and pulling in $400,000 a year. Customers adored his warmth, employees respected his leadership, and the community celebrated his success. In stark contrast, Cassandra Baker, later Cassandra Wells, was a woman of indulgence and glamour. Once a rising star in the modeling world, she had a magnetic charm that drew everyone into her orbit. But her career had waned over the years, and Cassandra found herself craving a new source of excitement. When she met Adrian at an elite catering event, their connection was instant. Adrian, with his unpretentious sincerity, was drawn to her radiance and sophistication. Cassandra, in turn, was captivated by his ambition and stability, a sharp contrast to the fleeting allure of her modeling days. Their romance unfolded like a whirlwind, marked by lavish dates and spontaneous gestures. Within 6 months, they were married in a ceremony that mirrored Cassandra's extravagant tastes. No expense was spared, and the photos graced the society pages. To outsiders, they were the perfect couple, the charming entrepreneur and the stunning socialite. But the foundation of their marriage was far from solid. While Adrian poured his heart into growing his business, Cassandra grew restless. Her penchant for designer clothes, luxury getaways, and high society events drained their finances faster than Adrian could replenish them. Monthly credit card bills skyrocketed to $122,000, leaving Adrian scrambling to keep up. Despite his efforts, Cassandra's appetite for the finer things remained insatiable, driving an emotional wedge between them. Adrian, ever the optimist, believed he could work through it, blind to how far his wife was willing to go to satisfy her desires. Their differences became a slow-burning fuse, masked by the smiles they showed the world. Adrian's relentless work ethic left little time for their relationship, while Cassandra sought comfort in the glamorous lifestyle Adrian's success afforded her. Beneath the surface, resentment simmered. Adrian's dreams and Cassandra's ambitions were on a collision course, setting the stage for a betrayal no one could have foreseen. June 17, 2010, should have been a routine evening at Wellswood Pies. The restaurant was alive with its usual dinner rush, the savory aroma of fresh pizza wafting through the air as a line of loyal customers stretched out the door. Adrian Wells was in his element, moving with practiced precision between the ovens, taking orders and chatting with customers who considered him more than just the owner. He was the heart and soul of the pizzeria. But just as the evening reached its peak, a horrifying scene unfolded. Adrian, clutching his chest, stumbled in the kitchen, his face contorted in pain. Staff and patrons looked on in shock as he collapsed to the floor. The commotion brought everything to a halt. Employees rushed to his side, but their attempts to revive him were in vain. By the time paramedics arrived, Adrian was pronounced dead. The initial cause? A sudden heart attack, leaving friends, family, and the community grieving the loss of a man who had been so full of life. The Wellswood Pies community rallied around Cassandra, now a grieving widow. Her sorrow appeared profound, her tearful statements to the press painting a portrait of a woman devastated by the loss of her husband. Yet beneath the layers of public grief, some who knew her couldn't help but notice something unsettling. Cassandra's demeanor seemed carefully curated, her responses rehearsed, and her actions in the days following Adrian's death struck some as unusually calculated. Detective Marisol Vega, a seasoned investigator with a sharp eye for details, was assigned to review Adrian's death. While the heart attack diagnosis seemed plausible on the surface, Vega's instincts urged her to dig deeper. Something about the scene didn't sit right with her. Adrian had been healthy, vibrant, and full of energy just days before. Vega began to unravel the threads, and when a toxicology report was filed a week later, her suspicions were confirmed. Adrian's blood and tissues contained lethal levels of ricin, a rare and highly potent poison. The revelation turned what had been seen as a natural tragedy into a chilling homicide. Someone had deliberately administered the poison, likely within hours of his death. Vega's investigation kicked into high gear, reclassifying the case as a murder. She began scrutinizing every detail, from Adrian's last meals to his interactions with those closest to him. The deeper she looked, the more the pieces began to point in an unsettling direction. Adrian's tragic death, once a cause for mourning, now took on a darker, more sinister tone. The community that had come together in grief found itself at the center of a growing storm, as the seeds of betrayal and greed began to come into focus. The question was no longer how Adrian died, but why, and who had the most to gain from his untimely demise. In the days following Adrian's sudden death, the cracks in Cassandra's carefully maintained facade started to show. Her behavior, once the picture of mourning, grew increasingly suspicious. When Detective Marisol Vega began her investigation, it was clear that Cassandra's actions were not in line with the grief-stricken widow she portrayed herself to be. 2 days after Adrian's death, she filed a claim on his life insurance policy, a $100,000 policy taken out just 3 months earlier. The policy included a double indemnity clause for accidental death, making the payout potentially even more lucrative if the cause of Adrian's death was deemed accidental. Cassandra's readiness to capitalize on his demise felt off, especially given her outward display of mourning. Vega dug into Cassandra's background, uncovering a series of unusual patterns. Her presence at the pizzeria on the night of Adrian's death, something entirely out of character for someone with her usual disinterest in the business, raised immediate red flags. Most of the time, she was conspicuously absent, choosing instead to spend her days at exclusive clubs or socializing with high society friends. But that evening, Cassandra was not just an observer. She was there, mingling with staff and customers in a way that seemed almost rehearsed. Vega's inquiries into her movements on June 17th revealed a pattern of behavior that didn't align with someone who had just lost her husband. The real tipping point came when Vega reviewed the security footage from Wellswood Pies. It was damning. Cassandra could be seen mingling more closely than usual with the restaurant's employees, her laughter echoing unnaturally bright against the somber atmosphere of the place. Vega noticed that her behavior was distinctly different from her usual aloofness. She was almost trying too hard to appear involved. This wasn't the woman crushed by grief. It was a woman orchestrating a performance. Cassandra's unnatural ease in a place where her presence had always been minimal only intensified Vega's suspicions. Further investigation into her financials revealed yet more troubling evidence. A $2,000 transfer from Adrian and Cassandra's joint account to Marcus Dree Carter's Velvet Lounge 2 days before his death emerged as a significant clue. Vega dug deeper and uncovered a web of intimate meetings between Cassandra and Carter, a man with a murky past and connections to local criminal activities. Surveillance footage from Carter's club revealed clandestine encounters between the two, their body language suggesting more than just a friendship. Cassandra's close ties to Carter were no longer just rumors, they were indisputable facts. Vega's inquiries into Cassandra's digital footprint added another layer of suspicion. Her laptop was littered with searches for topics that seemed out of character for a grieving widow, detailed instructions on the extraction and lethal dosages of ricin, a powerful poison. These searches indicated a premeditated plan, one that went beyond the impulsive decisions of a woman overwhelmed by loss. Vega pieced together Cassandra's attempts to educate herself on poison and her connection to Carter, whose own criminal activities made him a perfect partner for Cassandra's deadly plot. As the evidence mounted, Vega began to see the full picture. Cassandra's actions weren't those of a widow mourning the loss of her husband. They were those of a woman scheming for her own financial gain. Her rehearsed grief, her involvement with Carter, and her financial maneuvers all pointed to one conclusion. Cassandra Wells was the prime suspect in Adrian's murder. Vega's instincts, honed over years of investigating the darkest corners of human motives, led her to believe that Cassandra had not just lost her husband, but had orchestrated his death to secure her future with Carter. Suspicion had indeed fallen on Cassandra, a woman whose thirst for luxury and freedom had driven her to unimaginable extremes. As Detective Marisol Vega unraveled the layers of Cassandra Wells's life, the extent of her deceit became increasingly evident. The more Vega dug, the clearer it became that Cassandra's involvement in Adrian Wells's death was not just a single impulsive act, but a carefully constructed web of deceit. It all began with a $2,000 transfer from the joint bank account she shared with Adrian to Marcus Drake Carter's Velvet Lounge just 2 days before Adrian's death. This seemingly small transaction was the first crack in Cassandra's facade, a visible sign of financial maneuvering that suggested something deeper. Vega's inquiries revealed that Carter, with his connections to local crime networks, was not just a casual acquaintance, but an integral part of Cassandra's plan. The security footage from Velvet Lounge provided damning evidence. Cassandra was frequently captured in the company of Carter, their interactions increasingly intimate. The footage was clear. They were not just friends, but involved in clandestine meetings. Cassandra's body language was telling, a mix of anxious glances and furtive touches that suggested they were sharing more than mere friendship. These meetings weren't random. They were scheduled, deliberate, and conducted under the cover of night. This relationship raised suspicions not just about Cassandra's infidelity, but about her intentions towards Adrian. Further complicating Cassandra's situation was the discovery of her digital footprint. Vega found incriminating searches on her laptop, detailing everything from the extraction methods of ricin to lethal dosages. These weren't the innocent queries of a grieving widow looking for comfort or distraction. They were meticulously researched attempts to understand how to create the perfect poison. Cassandra had begun educating herself on poisons, specifically ricin, well before Adrian's death. These searches suggested a premeditated plan, a cold-blooded scheme to ensure her financial independence. The pieces of the puzzle fit together when Vega traced the source of the ricin that had poisoned Adrian. It led back to Cassandra's purchase from a natural health store using a fake ID and cash. The store's records showed a suspicious transaction made by someone posing as Cassandra. She had used the alias she often employed when attempting to evade detection, a habit Vega noted as a pattern throughout her life. The purchase was under the guise of a legitimate alternative health remedy, a common practice for those looking to mask illicit activities. Cassandra's attempt to disguise her purchase further indicated her awareness of the crime she was committing. In addition to the physical evidence, there was the testimony from Marcus Carter, who eventually turned state's witness. His confession provided a chilling insight into the depth of Cassandra's deceit. Carter revealed how Cassandra had manipulated him, promising him a future together if he helped her eliminate Adrian. Her plan was to kill Adrian and use the life insurance money to start a new life with Carter. Once she secured the insurance payout, she had planned to dispose of Carter as well, leaving no loose ends to jeopardize her newfound freedom. The evidence, both circumstantial and direct, painted a clear picture of Cassandra's intentions. She had constructed a web of deceit so intricate that it ensnared not just Adrian, but also Marcus Carter and anyone who might have questioned her actions. Cassandra's involvement wasn't merely about gaining the insurance money. It was about breaking free from the constraints of her marriage and creating a new life, even if it meant sacrificing Adrian and Carter along the way. Vega's investigation revealed a woman driven by greed and desire, willing to deceive, manipulate, and betray to get what she wanted. The web of deceit surrounding Cassandra Wells was a web spun with threads of betrayal, greed, and calculated cruelty. It was a web that ultimately ensnared her, leading to her downfall. Cassandra's actions were not just those of a wronged wife. They were those of a cold, manipulative killer who would stop at nothing to escape her reality. Vega's dogged pursuit exposed the truth, a truth that Cassandra had been desperate to keep hidden. The intricate web of deceit was Cassandra's undoing, revealing a woman far different from the grieving widow the public had seen. Detective Marisol Vega's investigation into Cassandra Wells' involvement in Adrian Wells' murder began to gather momentum with the discovery of several smoking guns, pieces of evidence so damning they couldn't be ignored. These critical clues weren't just circumstantial, they were the solid bricks of Cassandra's web of deceit, linking her directly to the crime. One of the first crucial pieces was the ricin found in Adrian's blood and tissues during the autopsy. The lethal substance, usually associated with spy thrillers and Hollywood plots, seemed out of place for a pizzeria chef like Adrian. However, Vega quickly identified that it wasn't accidental. It was deliberate and malicious. The source of the ricin provided the first major smoking gun. Vega traced it back to a purchase made under Cassandra's name at a local natural health store. She used a fake ID and paid in cash, a telltale sign of Cassandra's calculated planning. The purchase records showed Cassandra had bought the poison just days before Adrian's death. Vega's forensic team matched the batch number to the one found in Adrian's system. It was a direct link, proving that Cassandra had obtained the poison herself with the intent to use it. The careful documentation of the purchase, alongside the poison's presence in Adrian's body, was irrefutable evidence that she had been involved in his murder. Another damning piece of evidence was the surveillance footage from Velvet Lounge. It showed Cassandra meeting repeatedly with Marcus Carter, her accomplice in the plot. The footage captured their intimate interactions, their whispers, touches, and the way they exchanged money. These weren't just meetings of friends. They were the exchanges of plans and possibly a financial arrangement. The footage provided Vega with a clear visual of Cassandra's betrayal. The timing of the meetings, as well as Carter's testimony later on, painted a vivid picture of a premeditated crime. It wasn't just about Cassandra's infidelity. It was about a calculated murder for money. Cassandra's digital footprint also became a smoking gun. Vega found extensive searches on her laptop for ricin extraction methods and lethal dosages, dating back weeks before Adrian's death. These weren't innocent distractions or morbid curiosity. They were detailed queries about how to use poison effectively. Vega's IT experts analyzed the search history, which showed she had been methodically preparing for Adrian's death. The searches were not common for someone grieving the loss of a spouse, but rather for someone plotting a cold-blooded murder. Vega's team was able to establish a timeline demonstrating Cassandra's growing desperation and intent to kill Adrian. The final smoking gun was the financial evidence linking Cassandra directly to the crime. 2 days before Adrian's death, $2,000 was transferred from their joint bank account to Marcus Carter's club. The transfer wasn't just a withdrawal, it was an investment in their plan to murder Adrian and claim his insurance money. Vega found other transactions that matched Cassandra's lifestyle: designer clothes, lavish dinners, and payments to Velvet Lounge. The financial trail was clear. Cassandra was siphoning money from their joint account to fund her affair and secure her future. Vega's meticulous analysis of these transactions showed how Cassandra had financially manipulated Adrian and ultimately betrayed him. Vega's relentless pursuit of the truth brought Cassandra's sinister motives to light, revealing the full extent of her betrayal. Each of these smoking guns revealed more than Cassandra's guilt. They unveiled her cold-blooded calculations and manipulations. Cassandra Wells' actions were no longer those of a grieving widow, but those of a woman driven by greed, infidelity, and a twisted desire to break free from her marriage. Vega's thorough investigation exposed the depth of Cassandra's deceit, illustrating how meticulously she planned Adrian's murder. These pieces of evidence weren't just isolated clues. They were a damning mosaic that connected Cassandra directly to the crime. The smoking guns were the final blows to her facade, leaving no room for doubt. Vega's relentless pursuit of the truth brought Cassandra's sinister motives to light, revealing the full extent of her betrayal. The true motive behind Adrian Wells' murder came into sharp focus as Detective Marisol Vega peeled back the layers of Cassandra Wells' life. At the core of this tragic story were the twin engines driving her actions: greed and betrayal. Cassandra's motivations were not merely about extricating herself from a marriage that no longer fulfilled her. Instead, they were about seizing control over her financial destiny and building a future with Marcus Carter, the man who had become her confidant and co-conspirator. Cassandra's insatiable desire for wealth was the initial spark that ignited her path toward murder. Her extravagant lifestyle, filled with designer purchases, lavish dinners, and high society soirees, had always been sustained by Adrian's hard work. Yet it was never enough for her. Her monthly credit card bills amounted to $122,000, a stark indicator of her voracious appetite for spending. Cassandra had grown accustomed to living beyond their means, and Adrian's steady income was the only thing keeping their finances afloat. Her greed was not just for material possessions, but for an image of power, sophistication, and independence that Adrian couldn't provide. Vega's investigation revealed that Cassandra had begun planning her escape months before Adrian's death. The moment she learned about Adrian's new life insurance policy with a double indemnity clause, she saw an opportunity. The policy not only covered Adrian's income, but also offered her a substantial payout if he were to die under accidental circumstances. It was a financial safety net that Cassandra coveted, and she began to calculate how she could obtain it without raising too many questions. Her interactions with Marcus Carter, who seemed to share her desire for wealth and luxury, were pivotal in this plan. Their relationship wasn't just an affair, it was a partnership in crime. Cassandra's betrayal of Adrian was twofold. Firstly, she betrayed his trust by planning to kill him for insurance money. This was a betrayal not just to Adrian, but to the entire community that saw them as a picture-perfect couple. Her deceit was well calculated. She managed to appear devastated by Adrian's sudden death, effectively concealing her guilt. Cassandra's rehearsed grief and attempts to manipulate public sympathy painted a picture of a woman unfairly dealt a terrible blow. Yet, these were mere masks to disguise her cold-blooded actions. Vega's examination of Cassandra's actions in the days leading up to Adrian's death revealed a woman who was already making arrangements for her future, a future without Adrian. The betrayal extended to Marcus Carter as well. Cassandra's plan included eliminating Carter after she received the insurance payout, demonstrating her ruthless ambition. She saw Carter as a means to an end, a stepping stone towards financial freedom and a new, luxurious lifestyle. But her betrayal of Carter was exposed when he turned state's witness, providing a chilling account of their interactions. According to Carter, Cassandra had promised him a life together, only to cast him aside once she no longer needed him. Her betrayal was complete. She had used Carter as a pawn in her deadly game, only to discard him when he no longer served her purpose. Vega's findings painted a picture of a woman consumed by greed and betrayal, a woman willing to sacrifice everything, including her own marriage and the life of the man she claimed to love, for the allure of wealth and independence. Cassandra's desire for financial gain had driven her to commit an unfathomable act of betrayal against Adrian, setting in motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to his murder. Her motives were cold and brutal mix of self-interest and a profound disregard for human life. The motive behind Adrian's murder wasn't just about freeing herself from a stifling marriage. It was about achieving her dreams at any cost, even if that cost was another's life. The exposure of Cassandra's motives, her insatiable greed and betrayal, provided the missing pieces to the puzzle that Vega had been piecing together. These motives didn't just explain why Adrian died. They illuminated the darkness within Cassandra's soul. Her betrayal wasn't just to Adrian, but to the community that trusted her, and to the memory of the man she killed. Cassandra's motivations were a stark warning of the lengths some would go to achieve their desires. In the end, her greed and betrayal were her undoing, leading to a verdict that would forever change her life. The culmination of Detective Marisol Vega's investigation into Cassandra Wells' role in Adrian Wells' murder finally reached its climax on January 10, 2011, when the trial began. The evidence against Cassandra was overwhelming, a web of deceit woven through financial records, digital footprints, surveillance footage, and Carter's confession. The case was airtight, yet Vega knew that the outcome rested not just on the weight of the evidence, but also on the ability of the prosecution to convey the cold, calculated nature of Cassandra's actions to the jury. As the trial progressed, Vega sat in the courtroom, her gaze locked on Cassandra, a woman once beautiful and poised, now a figure of contempt. Cassandra's defense attorney attempted to paint her as a victim of circumstances, a grieving widow whose financial troubles had pushed her into a desperate situation. They argued that the transfer of funds to Carter's club was merely a loan from a friend, not a payment for murder. Yet Vega's meticulously constructed case shattered these claims. The $2,000 transfer was shown to the jury not as a loan, but as the funding for Cassandra's criminal plot. The smoking guns, the ricin purchase, the encrypted searches on her laptop, the intimate meetings with Carter were presented as evidence of Cassandra's premeditated murder. Vega's team used the forensic evidence to paint a vivid picture of Cassandra's intentions. The traces of ricin in Adrian's blood and the purchase records connected to Cassandra were irrefutable proof of her involvement. Each piece of evidence linked Cassandra to the crime, dispelling any notion that Adrian's death was a tragic accident. Vega's cross-examination of Marcus Carter was particularly damning. His testimony provided the jury with a window into Cassandra's betrayal. Carter's confession revealed how Cassandra had used him, promising a future together, only to cast him aside once she no longer needed him. This testimony was the emotional core of the case, exposing Cassandra's true nature and leaving the jury no doubt about her guilt. Cassandra's own words, found on her encrypted communications, further sealed her fate. Her searches for how to extract and use poison were chilling. These digital trails were not just evidence of her knowledge, but also her deliberate intent. Vega's forensic team had meticulously decrypted the files, showing that Cassandra had meticulously prepared for Adrian's death, even researching how to cover her tracks afterward. These documents, combined with Carter's testimony, provided a stark portrayal of a woman who had no remorse, a woman willing to sacrifice anyone, including Marcus Carter, to achieve her financial goals. In the courtroom, Vega watched as the jury deliberated. The room was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Cassandra sat silently, her face a mask of denial. She had maintained her innocence throughout, unable to accept the reality of her actions. But Vega's presentation of the evidence was compelling, each piece building the case against Cassandra until it was undeniable. The prosecution's closing arguments were powerful, painting Cassandra as a woman driven by greed and betrayal, willing to murder for a life of luxury. The defense's attempts to humanize her only seemed to emphasize her lack of remorse. The jury didn't need long to reach a verdict. The evidence was overwhelming, the case airtight. On February 15, 2011, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempted murder. Cassandra Wells was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus 25 years for her role in Adrian Wells' death. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Cassandra's mask of innocence shattered, replaced by a look of disbelief. Vega's eyes remained fixed on her, a silent acknowledgement of the justice finally served. The verdict was a testament to the meticulous work of Vega and her team, a victory for truth and justice. The trial's outcome wasn't just about Cassandra's guilt. It was about bringing to light the darkness within her, a darkness fueled by greed, betrayal, and the calculated desire to escape a life she no longer wanted. Vega's investigation had peeled away the layers of Cassandra's life, revealing a woman capable of the most heinous acts for money. The verdict was a message that no amount of deceit could obscure the truth. Vega's dogged pursuit had exposed the cold, calculating side of Cassandra Wells, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions. For Vega, the verdict was not just a victory, but a validation of her tenacity, a testament to her commitment to justice. The trial and conviction of Cassandra Wells marked the beginning of a new chapter in the story of Adrian Wells, a man whose life had been tragically cut short, but whose memory lived on in the lives of those who loved him. Adrian's legacy wasn't just about the manner of his death, but about the kind of person he was, a man of unwavering integrity, kindness, and dedication to his family and community. His life had been filled with the simple joys of his work at the pizzeria and the love he shared with his wife Monique, until it was torn apart by Cassandra's treacherous actions. Adrian's untimely death had left a void not only in his family, but also in the hearts of those who knew him in the close-knit community where green gourmet pies had been a beloved staple. For his loyal customers, Adrian was more than just the face behind the counter. He was a friend, a husband, and a symbol of the American dream realized through hard work and determination. The warmth of his smile, the genuine care he showed his patrons, And the pride he took in serving up his signature dishes made Green Gourmet Pies a place people sought out, not just for great food, but for the sense of community it provided. Adrian's murder shocked this community to its core, not just because of the brutal way he died, but because of the realization that evil could exist within a seemingly perfect life. The trial brought to light Adrian's financial struggles, revealing how Cassandra had siphoned away their savings to fuel her extravagant lifestyle. Yet even in death, Adrian's financial misfortune wasn't what defined his legacy. Instead, it was his character, the unyielding love he had for his work and his wife, a love that Cassandra had betrayed. Vega's investigation uncovered Adrian's journals and letters, where he spoke of his hopes for the future and his love for Monique. These personal writings provided a stark contrast to the cold, calculating woman Cassandra had become, a reminder of Adrian's innocence and the heartbreaking betrayal he suffered. His legacy was not just about how he died, but about how he had lived, a man who deserved far more than the tragic fate that befell him. After the trial, the community rallied around Adrian's memory. Green Gourmet Pies reopened its doors under new management, but it would never be the same without Adrian. The business continued, but it was a somber reminder of the man who should have been behind the counter, who should have been there to greet returning customers and share a slice of his life with them. The pizzeria became a shrine of sorts, adorned with photos of Adrian and tributes from loyal patrons who felt his loss keenly. It was a place where people could come to remember the good times, the man who had made a simple pizzeria a home away from home for so many. For Adrian's family, the trial was a painful ordeal, yet it was also a form of closure. Marisol Vega's relentless pursuit of justice brought not just Cassandra to justice, but also allowed Adrian's family to find some measure of peace. The Wells family's grief was compounded by the revelation of Cassandra's betrayal, but Vega's work ensured that Adrian's legacy wasn't overshadowed by the circumstances of his death. In the end, Adrian's story became a testament to the enduring power of love, integrity, and community. It was a reminder that a good man's life, though cut short, had meaning and impact, that his love and kindness, though betrayed, would live on in the hearts of those who knew him. The legacy of Adrian Wells was not just about the life he lost, but the life he lived. A life of hard work, love, and a commitment to his family and community. His murder and the subsequent trial were a tragic chapter in his story, but they also became a catalyst for change. Adrian's memory prompted a renewed sense of vigilance within the community, a reminder to trust less in appearances and more in the people we share our lives with. His legacy was a beacon of hope in the darkness, a symbol of resilience and the enduring human spirit. Vega's investigation and the verdict were a victory not just for justice, but for the memory of Adrian Wells, a man who deserved better than the betrayal he faced and the tragic end he met. As Cassandra Wells began her life sentence, the Wells family found themselves grappling with their loss, but also with the understanding that Adrian's story had been told. His legacy was now set in stone, not just a cautionary tale of betrayal and greed, but a tribute to a life lived well and a love that endured even beyond death. Adrian's legacy was about remembering the man he was, not just the way he died. For Marisol Vega, his story was a reminder of why she had chosen this line of work, to fight for those who could no longer fight for themselves. Adrian Wells' legacy was a stark reminder of the cost of betrayal, but it was also a celebration of the love that lived on in the hearts of those he left behind.